Good evening, everyone. Mike Palmer from Know Your Rights Group and Success Coaching International with another important live video update tonight. So I have been speaking quite a bit over the past few weeks and videos that I've done about all the new traffic cameras that are being rolled out, all the various issues with them. I also spoke about all the talk from the government about the need to introduce these new road safety initiatives. But despite all of that talk, they clearly still don't get the message. Now, I spoke just last week about this road safety summit that the WA government held. And despite me very clearly explaining a number of initiatives that would generally make our roads a hell of a lot safer, things like incentives for P-platers, improving the actual quality of the roads, I mean, there's a good start, reduction on registration fees for people who completed defensive or advanced driver courses, all those sorts of things. And not only that, but a number of our viewers who watch these videos also wrote in explaining the exact same issues. And despite all of that, it was all completely overlooked in favour of essentially just more enforcement, which, as the current road toll shows, simply doesn't work. So this is the media release that the WA government sent out after their so-called road safety summit. And just listen for the key strategies, which are essentially just more of the same that has been proven time and time again not to work. So this is the article or their media release. It's entitled "Additional $32.5 million in funding to boost safety on regional roads." The Cook government will spend an additional $32 million over the next 4 years to boost road safety on regional roads across West Australia. 20 million safety treatments on key local government roads. 8.6 million for 2 new breath and drug testing buses in regional areas. 2.1 million for increased police traffic enforcement in regional areas, plus high visibility police car livery, and 1.8 million for improved traffic data gathering. The funding allocation through Road Trauma Trust account involves a range of initiatives covering improved road infrastructure, enforcement and data gathering. It follows a roundtable of road safety experts and advocates convened by Premier Roger Cook this week to examine new and innovative ways to improve road safety on WA roads after the state this year registered its worst year-to-date road toll since 2016. New and innovative? More drug and breath testing buses? More police enforcement? How is any of this new and innovative? The funding includes an additional $20 million towards the WA Labor government's landmark Regional Road Safety Program, RRSP. The RRSP was launched in 2020 to specifically target single vehicle runoff road crashes. That's fatigue, people. How do people get fatigued? By sitting too long in the car at such artificially reduced limits, falling asleep at the white line. I guarantee you, up the speed limit to 150 k's, 200 k's an hour, there won't be people running off the road because they've fallen asleep. That's been proven time and time again on the autobahns in Europe. To date, more than 9,000 kilometres of the state's regional road network has been upgraded with safety treatments such as shoulder widening and sealing and the installation of audible edge and centre lines. By the middle of next year, it's expected 10,000 kilometres will have had safety treatments installed. How about you just fix the potholes? That might be a good start, before we worry about all these other things. Traffic data gathering to provide intelligence on potential road safety treatments and the deployment of safety cameras. There it is again, people. That's all it is. Will be improved with a $1.8 million allocation. The initiatives have been designed to target regional areas of WA, which have recorded a sharp spike in road deaths in the year to date. So they're admitting that the road toll has increased, but they essentially just want to do more of the same. All they're interested in is more control over motorists and finding new ways to find them. They're not actually interested in increasing road safety at all. Now, one of the important points that was raised in that article was this single vehicle accidents. Now, again, as I said, it comes down primarily to fatigue. Now, there was actually another very interesting article that came out just the other week on that specific topic. And this is the title of that article, and I urge everyone to please go and read this because this really is an issue. So this is what it says. Enough is enough. Police to target tired drivers in road safety blitz. New South Wales Police has announced a new crackdown targeting fatigued drivers on the state roads, but is it actually illegal to drive while tired? On September 4, 2024, New South Wales Police announced it would undertake high-volume stationary and mobile random breath and drug testing in addition to speaking with motorists regarding their fatigue levels. Traffic and Highway Patrol Commander Acting Assistant Commissioner David Driver said that enough is enough when it comes to motorists dying on our roads. And then there's a little subheading there saying, is it actually illegal to drive while tired? And it says there is no specific road rule related to driving while fatigued. However, you can be fined for reckless or negligent driving if your fatigue is deemed dangerous by a police officer or causes a collision. There's an idea. Why don't we get rid of all these blatant blanket speeding fines and only issue fines if that speeding is dangerous? Because you can't tell me that doing 5 or 6 kilometres an hour over the posted limit on a freeway when all the other traffic's moving the same is in any way, shape or form dangerous. Let's get back to focusing on actual dangerous driving. If you are found guilty of reckless, dangerous or negligent driving, you'll face a large court-appointed fine, which can carry a loss of licence for minor accidents or jail time if your driving has caused grievous bodily harm or death under the Crimes Act Section 52A. Again, this is what we should be doing. Absolutely. If someone's speeding or they're drink driving or playing on their phone or they go through a red light and they actually have a collision and cause someone some harm or injury, then they get hit with a massive fine. Then they get put in jail. Not these willy-nilly fines that are all about blatant revenue raising and have little to nothing to do with road safety, as I'll prove again in the remainder of tonight's video. Transport New South Wales offers the following advice. Research shows that driving while fatigued can be as dangerous as drink driving. But unlike drink driving, there are no laws regulating driver fatigue for light vehicles. Why not? If they tell you that driving whilst you're tired is just as dangerous as driving drunk, why are there rules for drunk drivers and not for fatigued drivers? It makes no sense. While not always deliberate behaviour, driving when tired is a contributing factor in between 16 to 20% of all road crashes in Victoria. Even brief lapses in concentration can have serious consequences, says the TAC. 16 to 20% of accidents, driving whilst fatigue is a factor. And yet it's not actually illegal. I mean, I don't understand this, okay? If driving while fatigued is a factor in 16 to 20% of accidents, but what they call speeding is only a factor in 5% of accidents, and this is something we've been teaching people for the last 10 years, and we've shown all the statistics and the data to prove, speed or speeding is only a factor, not the factor, just like fatigue is a factor, not the factor. In 16 to 20% of accidents, speed is only a factor in 5% of accidents. Yet there are endless penalties imposed for speeding, but none for fatigue, despite it being 3 to 4 times more dangerous. I mean, why? Why is that? Maybe because, I don't know, detecting someone travelling above some, arbitrarily set and artificially reduced speed limit is very simple, especially with the rollout of all these cameras. But of course, detecting someone driving while fatigued is much, much harder. So the cost of writing a law to deal with fatigued drivers would be very time consuming and expensive, with little to no financial return, yet fining speeding motorists rakes in $2 billion a year. That's, with a B, people, $2 billion a year for the various state governments. So again, I urge everybody in New South Wales to please go back and watch my last video update and write into the relevant ministers, write into the relevant police personnel and inform them of those Aussie speeding fine strategies that will actually make the roads safer if that's what they are genuinely interested in doing. Now, to finish off on that point, there's actually just been a brand new 10-year report that's just been released that, again, details very, very similar facts. So this is the title of the article, but again, it doesn't just apply to Melbourne, it applies to everybody. It says, Melbourne Road named Australia's worst crash hotspot. Plenty Road in Bundoora has emerged as Australia's most risky road for car crashes, over the past decade, according to a new report released by insurer AAMI, the Decade of Driving report covers data from January 1st, 2014 to December 31st, 2023, and has revealed a concerning trend in road safety. Now, this is a proper 10-year report that's been conducted, so lots and lots of data. Not just skewed statistics that the government like to, spew out every year to justify their, ongoing revenue raising. A proper detailed 10-year report. The report identified Plenty Road as the nation's worst crash hotspot, recording the highest frequency of accidents compared to other roads with reported crashes. And they go on and they explain the other, major roads that are issues in the other states. But then there's a little subheading called Trends in crash timing and frequency. James identified a clear pattern in crash timings, noting that afternoons, particularly during school pickup times, are when collisions most frequently occur. Now, what comes to mind when you think of school pickup times straight away? Oh, the reduced speed limit. So they reduced the speed limit even more than it usually is, and lo and behold, crashes go up. What do you know? Who would have thought? This is a time when roads are busy, patience is wearing thin, drivers are tired from the day, there's fatigue again, but that's not illegal, and racing to get home or to their next destination, she said. The report indicated that nose-to-tail crashes are the most common type of collision, accounting for 26% of all accidents. Other frequent causes including drivers failing to give way, 19%, parking-related incidents, 17%. Additionally, Fridays are the most accident-prone day of the week, with 16% of crashes occurring, followed by Thursdays and Wednesdays. So here again, we have some real-world data, but what we don't have is a single mention anywhere there of the word speed or speeding. Doesn't even factor into this 10-year report. Instead, what they're doing is they're spelling out the true factors, of course, none of which are actually focused on by the states because they can't make any actual money from those. Now, if you needed any further proof that it is all simply about the money, I have it on good authority, and I can't explain where on this video right now, but having done extensive contract work for the Victoria Police for 13 years myself in the past, I do have it on good authority that the Victorian government is currently in the process of tendering for a new system of fines enforcement. Not, mind you, tendering for new strategies to implement to make our roads safer. Okay? Not tendering for new strategies and driver education programs to, bring people up to speed with the dangers of all these things. Not tendering for advanced driver training or, those sorts of courses or programs to be supplied for motorists. No, they're tendering for a system of streamlined enforcement of the millions in outstanding fines that motorists are simply wising up to and refusing to pay. So please, if you want to be one of those wise motorists who've chosen to successfully challenge their fines rather than blindly paying them, grab a copy of that Aussie Speeding Fines book. And remember, these guys have been helping motorists for over 17 years now to do exactly that, so you know their information works, okay? You find a link in the description and a link in the comments. Now, should you need any further proof that their strategies work, check out this latest testimonial from one of their members. This was sent through from a lady by the name of Christine. It says, hi ASF, Mike and the KYR team. My most recent speeding fine after I sent letter 1, I received a summons to go to court. As per the instructions in the ASF book, I made the phone call to the court coordinator 2 days prior to my hearing to get an adjournment. The girl I spoke to looked up my case and said, your hearing was this morning. What? I couldn't believe it. I'd gotten the date wrong. I was just dying inside thinking, oh no, I've blown it, and I wasn't there to defend myself. So I suppose I'll have to pay the fine now. While I was silently having a meltdown, the girl on the phone said, well, don't you want to know the outcome? I said, yeah, okay. She said, your case has been dismissed. I couldn't believe it. I got off the phone and I could not stop laughing. What an awesome outcome. I didn't have to adjourn. I didn't have to prepare my case. I didn't even have to turn up. Just done and dusted right then and there and in my favour. Such a relief. I'm still smiling. Thank you so much, ASF and KYR. Please feel free to use my story if you like. Regards, Christine. So once again, there it is, proof in black and white and from one of our members that the process in that Aussie speeding fines book absolutely does work. These fines get withdrawn, dismissed for all sorts of reasons all the time. The minute you hand over your money, though, that's it. You can never get that money back. Now, the next thing is, should you need any more reasons why you absolutely should be using that book to challenge all unjust and unlawful fines, then have a listen to this next article where the mainstream media, is actually describing fines as a legal scam. Okay, they actually printed it and said it's a legal scam. Greedy councils slammed over ridiculous parking fines. Aussies are being slugged at ridiculous fees on a daily basis, and according to Caleb Bond, it's all part of a nasty legal scam. Stop telling us how many people are sucked in by illegal online Nigerian print scams. I want to know how many people fall victim to one of the only legal scams: parking fines. The Minns government in New South Wales has finally cracked down on councils issuing ticketless parking fines, banning the practice. It was a sneaky way of revenue raising because you wouldn't know you'd been fined until a letter arrived in the mail. But by that time you'd had no hope of challenging the fine because you had taken no evidence from the scene, unlike when you find a ticket on your windscreen. That's a good start, but the next order of business should be to review all parking fines. How can parking your car on the side of the road for 15 minutes longer than some sign allows be a crime worth more than $100? Parking offences are victimless crimes. No one is hurt by them. They exist simply to make money for greedy councils. And if it's a vehicle registered to a business, the fines can be thousands, not just hundreds of dollars. Some councils are now even using CCTV cameras to ping people. Holdfast Bay Council in Adelaide recently sent a man a $116 fine for stopping on a yellow line. He was captured on CCTV and a fine arrived in the mail about a week later. There is seemingly no escape from this injustice. 7 years ago, I received a call from an MP in Adelaide complaining that at least 5 of his constituents had been stung in one street for parking out the front of their houses. It turned out that the street, for some unknown reason, had been declared a 24-hour bike lane 2 years earlier, and the residents were completely unaware until a parking inspector swept through one Sunday afternoon and pinged everyone parked on the street for $257. The residents had presumably been parking there and never assumed they were breaking the law, but a sticker licker, needing to meet his quota, thought he'd found some easy prey. A year later, I asked all Adelaide councils to provide their parking fine data, and it turned out that half of expiation notices that were challenged ended up being overturned. I'll say it again because this is the key. Half of expiation notices that were challenged ended up being overturned. There it is in black and white, people. Okay, this is a mainstream media article. It's not some weird, obscure, article off the internet. It's mainstream media. Anyone can go and look that up. Okay, and I urge you to do so because it's that closing line that is most important. Okay, half the fines that were challenged ended up being overturned. So if half the fines that are out there that people are actually bothering to challenge are being overturned, and if that Aussie speeding fines book has that tried, tested and proven 3-step process for challenging all unjust and unlawful fines, and that book is less than $100, what on earth are you waiting for? Why would you keep handing over good money after bad? Okay, it makes no sense. Now, possibly there are some of you out there going, oh, look, I still don't believe it can be that easy. Okay, they've been around for 17 years, but okay. Check out the next mainstream media article that I'm going to go through, which again confirms something that the Aussie speeding fines guys have been telling people for years. And this is confirmed by the police themselves. Again, you can see this is in the Yahoo News. This is mainstream. Okay. Road rule loophole sees driver avoid $247 fine after being caught on camera speeding. Victoria Police confirmed the fine can always be challenged. But there is one condition. An Aussie driver has revealed how they managed to avoid paying a $247 fine and losing a demerit point after they were caught by a camera travelling above the limit. In certain situations, drivers in Victoria can have a fine waived by police, the motorist claimed. Thankfully for them, they were let off with an official warning instead, taking advantage of a provision in the state's road rules many might not be aware of. A similar situation exists in South Australia too, and also New South Wales. Any speeding fine issued by Victoria Police members on the road can be challenged, a Victoria Police spokesperson told Yahoo News Australia. And then it says how Victorian fines can have these speeding fines reviewed or waived. Across the state, Victoria Police has the discretion upon review to withdraw an infringement notice and issue an official warning in its place by considering a number of factors. These can include the circumstances of the fine, the time of the offence, weather conditions, traffic density, and the type of road or land, police say. Only drivers who have not had any other speeding infringements, safety-related infringements, or official warnings in the past 2 years will be considered, and the criteria for a good driving record must be satisfied to be let off. For those who may not be aware, in certain situations you can have a speeding fine waived by Vic Pol, he wrote. Doing this saved me $247 and a demerit point waived. The speeding fine loophole came as a shock to some who admitted they weren't aware. Damn, I should have done that for mine on Christmas Day 2020 when I was 4 kilometres over and hadn't received a speeding fine since 2005, wrote one person in response. Let's say damn again. I didn't know this and they got me 3 kilometres over 2 years ago, another said. Others admitted they have tried their luck in the past and also got let off. Now, again, this is just one of the many loophole strategies, issues, whatever you want to call them, that is covered in that Aussie speeding fines books. Again, you find a link in the description. You find a link in the comments as well. And again, don't wait till you get a fine. Get the book now. Read all that information, because many times once you know the questions to ask at the time you're being pulled over, you can avoid a fine even being issued to you in the first place. All right, so moving on, but still on the subject of vehicles, we've obviously spoken a number of times on our radio shows this year, especially about the whole electric vehicle scam. And here is another great reason not to buy an EV if you or someone you know was considering it. This is the article. And it says, trying to force people. Numbers reveal massive electric vehicle flop. EVs have been such a commercial flop that manufacturers are now trying to flog them by any means necessary, says Caleb Bond. EV deliveries dropped 10% in June when they made up 8.3% of all new cars sold in Australia, down from 8.8% the same time last year. Last month, EV sales slumped to 5.9% of the market. This was despite many manufacturers cutting prices, some by more than $20,000 in recent months, and people still don't want them. Hence why cheap EV company BYD last month signed a global deal with Uber to supply at least 100,000 of its vehicles at heavily discounted prices to rideshare drivers. It will start in Europe and Latin America and expand to Western nations, including Australia and New Zealand. Chinese businesses are, as we know, intrinsically linked to the Chinese Communist Party and are often heavily subsidised by the government. BYD is effectively engaging in a process called dumping, whereby one nation exports a production to another nation and sells it below the domestic sale price in an effort to flood the market and squeeze out competitors. Car makers are now rationing the sale of petrol vehicles in the UK because not enough people are buying EVs, and if they sell too many internal combustion engine cars, they'll be hit with heavy environmental penalties. I mean, it's just madness. The boss of major British car dealer Vertu Motors, Robert Forrester, last week told The Telegraph that manufacturers were delaying the delivery of ordered cars until next year, lest they exceed government-mandated quotas. No less than 22% of cars sold in the UK by manufacturers must be zero emission under the rules. Car companies have slugged £15,000, nearly $30,000 for every petrol car sold over their quota. And given no one is buying electric cars, those companies are now artificially shrinking the entire new car market to avoid that cost. By the simple law of supply and demand, that will mean higher new and used car prices. So if you've got a good old gas-guzzling V8, don't be any rush to get rid of it because they're all going to go up because you're not going to be able to buy them, and that's what people are going to want. Despite the heavy subsidies and discounts being applied to push EVs, people still aren't buying them. Volvo last week announced it was scrapping plans to sell only electric vehicles by 2030 because the market had changed. Toyota, the chairman of which has previously said electric vehicles will only ever make up 30% of the market, has now cut its EV target for 2026 by a third. And don't forget that Labor, prior to winning the 2022 federal election, predicted EVs would make up 89% of car sales by 2030. Yeah, right. A statistic the Federal Transport Department now forecasts at a much lower 27%. If you ever needed another reason not to trust and not believe the government, there's another one. But the green zealots are insisting on forcing everyone into EVs. Unfortunately for them, no matter how hard they try, even trying to force people into buying electric cars, we simply won't purchase them. The Brits are so determined not to buy electric that they'll wait months for a petrol car rather than buy one of the cheap, abundant EVs collecting dust on showroom floors. At what point will we just admit the whole thing is a sham? I don't know. I mean, some people wake up to things quickly and other people take a long time before they get the message. I mean, look, we're all for the adoption of various technologies and, we've done so ourselves over the years at various times. But we have been telling people for the last few years that this whole EV thing is a great big scam. Yes, it might have some small positive application in very densely populated countries. But according to that article, even those countries don't want them. There is absolutely, no benefit in a wide open country like Australia. Okay, so the last article that I want to touch on tonight is, of course, this misinformation and disinformation bill that many people have been talking about over the past week. Now, if you haven't yet heard about it, this is what they are trying to do. This is straight off the actual government website, so you can just look that up, type that in, and you'll find that. Government to introduce legislation to combat seriously harmful misinformation and disinformation. The Albanese government will introduce legislation to Parliament to give the Australian Communications and Media Authority, ACMA, new powers to hold digital platforms to account and improve efforts to combat seriously harmful misinformation and disinformation. The Communications Legislation Amendment Combating Misinformation Disinformation Bill 2024 is focused on combating the most seriously harmful content on digital platforms and contains strengthened protections for freedom of speech. Yeah, right. This follows extensive public consultation process with key stakeholders. Really? Who are those key stakeholders? Because I don't recall being consulted. Maybe some of you on this video have been consulted. Drop a comment in the in the comment section. Let us know if you've been consulted in this extensive public consultation process. To refine and prepare the bill for introduction. While digital platforms have brought significant benefit to Australians, allowing us to connect with family and friends around the world, they can also serve as a vehicle for the spread of misleading or false information that is seriously harmful to Australia's health, safety, security and well-being. Okay. According to the Australian Media Literacy Alliance, 80% of Australians say the spread of misinformation on social media needs to be addressed. Well, I dare say those 80% of Australians need to listen to the 20% of Australians, and they might learn a few important things. The bill empowers the ACMA to oversee digital platforms with new information gathering, record keeping, code registration and standard making powers. It will also introduce new obligations on digital platforms to increase their transparency with Australian users about how they handle misinformation and disinformation on their services. Platforms are and will remain responsible for managing content on their services in line with their own terms of service. And we saw just how well that worked over COVID, didn't we, with things like Twitter and Facebook and all the rest of it. So, I find it really interesting personally. There's been so much talk already this year, about the next pandemic. And of course, the truth about the last pandemic, what they were previously calling misinformation, is now coming out as being 100% true and correct. Mind you, it's taken 2 or 3 years for that to finally come out. So to ensure that the information on the next pandemic is not shared with people in a timely manner, they choose to instead propose this bill instead. Isn't that convenient? So please, if you want to stop this dead in its tracks, first and foremost, people need to write to their members of parliament and remind them that they exist to to act as their representatives on the floor of Parliament. You need to express them very, very clearly in a My Will letter. Again, we have those My Will letters in our Know Your Rights book. Okay, go to the vaccination section on that, and there's an example of a My Will letter in there. Okay, and tell them that you want them to oppose this, draconian legislation that is now being put before Parliament. Now, we're going to be discussing this in much greater detail on Tuesday night's radio show, which of course is much longer and again completely uncensored, because of course no doubt the fact checkers will be onto this straight away again. So please do be sure to tune in for Tuesday night's radio show. You can just click the big black listen live button on our radio show page. Again, you should find a link going up in the comments. Of course, you can just find it on our website, and that's between 8 and 10 p.m. on Tuesday night, and of course that's Australian Eastern Standard Time. Now, also on Tuesday night, we're going to be talking about the significant changes that the New Zealand Parliament is trying to make to the Treaty of Waitangi, and what our members in New Zealand need to be doing to challenge those various changes as well. So if you or anyone you know is in New Zealand, make sure they listen to Tuesday night's radio show as well. Okay, so finally, to finish off, I'm going to go through the latest memes to get people thinking. Now, the first one's actually is a post by Senator Gerard Orenick in relation to this misinformation bill. So please be sure to follow this up. And again, we will cover it more on Tuesday. But he said, you don't need to be a rocket scientist to realise that the misinformation bill is about shutting down people who go against the government narrative. To exclude government, media and universities just goes to show how belligerent and unashamed the authorities have become in exerting power. The definition of harm can be used to shut down anyone who calls out the woke mind virus. This bill needs to be killed, stone cold dead. So again, it's not going to happen of its own accord. We need people to take action. And as I said before, write those My Will letters to your members of Parliament and make sure that they represent you. I mean, this one again is on the same topic, and spells it out so very, very clearly. When you're so bad at your job that you, pardon me, that you make new laws to stop the people talking about how bad you are. It's pretty simple. Now, speaking of bad politicians, the truth is now finally starting to come out about good old dictator Dan, and this is a very powerful report. I urge you to go and look that up if you're a subscriber to Herald Sun. Unfortunately, you can't get it if you're not, but there was a very detailed report saying that the official report is very likely complete rubbish, and it doesn't add up, and hopefully, let us hope and pray that Dan will finally be held to account and will finally be sent to jail, not only for what happened with the bicycle incident, but of course after everything that he did to Victoria over COVID. Yes, this is a bit of a fun one. Here's the little girl asking her dad, and there's his response. So he says, how come people never listen to me? There's nonsense, honey. There are at least 3 agencies and 8 corporations listening to you right now. We've all had that experience where something you're talking about with friends pops up on your Facebook feed or your Instagram feed just by magic. What do you know? All right, and I'm going to leave you with this one as the final parting one, because this one is very, very important, especially with this ongoing push for this cashless society. So, as it says there, roses are red, free thinkers are few. If you keep obeying orders, you'll have a chip inserted in you. So we don't want that happening to anyone, so we need to keep standing our ground. All right, I am going to leave things there for tonight. As always, I do urge you to make full use of all of the resources that are available to you, to please get informed, get fired up and get proactive. We do need that this year more than ever before. Of course, we have these videos which are completely free to watch. They're on the videos tab on our Facebook page, on our BitChute channel, and of course also on our YouTube channel. We have our radio show, as I mentioned before, live again on Tuesday night. If you've missed any of the past radio shows, it's less than $5 a week to become a podcast member. We also have one-on-one coaching sessions available again now. You should find a link in the pardon me, comment section going up. Again, you can find it on our shop page. go down the first shot page. If you're wanting some more personalised one-on-one assistance with anything, we can do those coaching calls again now. Of course, we have our book, The Essential Step-by-Step Manual for Understanding and Exercising Your Rights, available on our site. That Aussie Spreading Funds book, which I've spoken about many times already tonight, and of course the Bank Secrets Revealed book. If you are struggling financially, you want to discharge those unsecured loans, credit cards, personal loans, grab that book. You can get them all individually. There's links in the description. You can get them together as part of the combo pack. We do have the tote bags that are included as a bonus, completely free of charge. It looks like the cold weather's back again, certainly here in Melbourne, where we've just returned from our Perth events. So some Melbourneites might want to grab some beanies. Otherwise, those of you in other states that are experiencing some warmer weather, lucky you. Make sure you grab one of our caps. People see the logo, they come up, have a chat. It's a great way to meet like-minded people. On that subject, of course, the final live events, or the final standard live events, were run in Perth over this weekend. We'll be doing a review of that on Tuesday night. So the only way to find our information now is to grab that, pardon me, that home study course. It is, of course, a complete recording of one of our 2.5-day live events. There's 3 custom-made workbooks, 17 DVDs. You can pause, rewind, fast forward in the comfort of your own home to review all that information. So if you've been to one of our events and thought, oh my God, this was such amazing information, I need to review it, or if you missed out for some reason, please grab that home study course. You'll find a link in the description and in the comments. It is a fantastic resource tool that you'll come back to again and again and again. So I'm going to leave things there. I hope you all have a fantastic weekend. If you're in Melbourne, try and stay warm. Good luck. And otherwise, I'll speak to everyone on Tuesday night on our radio show, or of course again next Thursday night for our next live video update. Until then, take care.